Connor, welcome back on to the How to Cut It podcast. We last spoke April 2020, episode 145. So it's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me. We're just going to pretend those last 2 years just didn't happen. And now I'm just back here. We're just going to never even acknowledge it.
Firstly, congratulations. You are just huge in the industry now.
Oh, thank
Not
you.
just, here in Ireland, UK and Ireland, but globally as a content creator. What do you put this down to, Connor?
I think I'm afraid to even say the COVID word, but I genuinely think a lot of it was so many people were online at that time and so desperately seeking maybe like an authentic connection or an authentic story to be happening. And I think I just got to a point where that's all I was doing. I kind of felt a little bit drained by social media and how polished and perfect everything was. So I just kind of put myself out there a bit more, unedited, rough around the edges, and found that I was able to just build community and contact and a good relationship with a following. And I think that was really what kind of accelerated the growth for sure.
Your skill sets in, Reels, TikTok, your views and followings are absolutely colossal. Is this all self-taught? Is there somebody behind you who's doing this? I'd love to know, or our listeners would certainly love to know
Do you
how
know what
this
it is?
works and how you've got to this.
It's stubbornness, basically. I tend to infatuate over
Okay.
things. And if I can't understand something, I will stick at it until I get it. And often to detriment, everything else just falls by the wayside. But I remember when kind of video content first started taking off, just spending days sitting with it and thinking, how can you make it a little bit more interesting? How can you make it look a little bit more unique? And a lot of it was self-taught, to be honest. It's similar to how I approach like hairdressing. If I find a problem, I just try to figure out a solution. And I might see a video somebody's done, I would just try to figure out how it was done. And in doing that, you kind of discover other ways around it. But it is tough, and we are kind of expected to be not only hairdressers, but producers, directors, editors, everything like that. But I just stuck with it. I just really kept trying things, putting them out. If something did well, I'd figure out what did well and I'd do more of it. If something didn't do well, I would analyze it and think, well, how can I produce it better? What was the common thread maybe in this and another video that didn't do well? And I just kept doing it. I think ultimately it came down to not being afraid of low views and not being afraid to put stuff out there to test the waters. And when you kind of eliminate that, self-consciousness, suddenly something that you wouldn't have even thought of twice can just blow up, and all of a sudden you've got kind of a unique way of editing that you didn't even think of, that now you can start applying to the rest of your content. So it's really just stubbornness, definitely, but also just not being afraid to start firing things out there and seeing how people respond.
Love-hate relationship.
It is the
Yeah.
most love-hate, borderline abusive relationship. It's something, and I'm sure we'll kind of get back into it a bit later on a deeper level, but it's something I'm very aware of when I talk about, and something I'm very conscious of the pros and cons, and I have to keep them always balanced at all time, because it can bring you such lightning success, it can bring you such lightning connections, opportunities, exposure, but it can do it on the flip side as well. And I think if you become too dependent on the good, it can start to genuinely really affect you. And then if you become too dependent on the bad, you'd never do anything, So I think it's a very two-faced monster, social media. And even when I educate around it or talk about it, I almost do like a preface before I go into it, like a disclaimer, being like, this is not me encouraging you to try go viral or try do this, that, the other.
I like
This
that.
is
Yeah.
what it is. I think it's really important. But yes, love-hate relationship for sure.
Why is it so important for you
I think
personally?
it allows us to connect with people further away that you mightn't have even realized would have been interested in what you're doing. I'm from Ireland. I think, as we were saying earlier in the call, the last time we spoke, I was at the bottom of a mountain in Kerry. I'm now at the bottom of a mountain in Wicklow. I'm not in Salon much. I don't actually, I don't really see or get the opportunity to network hugely at events. I wouldn't be a massively extroverted person, funny enough. And for me, it's just really important because it's allowing me to connect with people and explore opportunities and get a real sense of what's going on in the industry in a much broader sense than what I'm exposed to in front of me, if that makes sense.
When I see all these views, and I guess I'm asking for so many of our listeners who I know are huge fans. If I've ever said to people that I've got someone coming on the podcast and I say it's you, Connor, there is so much excitement around you.
Oh, that's great.
And I guess they look at you as such. But truly, I know when you spoke at Colour World as well, I know you blew away so many people with what you spoke about there. But so many people, your likability, but they're looking at you and they're seeing these views and there's this sort of pressure and they're thinking, but I need these views like Connor's getting. Do those 1.4 million views that you would get on TikTok have a real effect on what's happening in your career? Do you get paid for these, or what's the upside to those 1.4 million views?
So, it's a funny one. I actually, I've had probably about maybe 5 or 6 videos go pretty viral, and I've had the highest views that I have on a video at the minute sits around 30 million, I think. And actually, there comes a point, it's almost like a declining marginal sort of return. When you go past a certain level of viral, it starts to dilute what you get back from it. So I always will say to people, if you go viral, it can be a very powerful thing, but it can also be extremely destructive for a couple of different things. One, if it's maybe you've gone viral for a video that isn't relevant to your niche, you can end up with a huge following of people that you won't be able to monetize, or you won't be able to, enhance your kind of business with. If you go viral for a video that's slightly controversial, you're going to get backlash. If you go viral for a video that, for one of my one, is where you're the focus, it's your face, you're suddenly you're a target for trolling and stuff. So I actually think viral up to a point can be really beneficial, but I also think it starts to decline. So I think when you kind of stay under that million radar, what you're doing is you're reaching the right people, and for that the benefit is tenfold. If you're hitting your niche, so if you're reaching more of the people. So for me, that's why I did these kind of comedy hairdressing videos initially at the start, was to reach hairdressers, and that brought in more people for me to maybe work with in education, consultancy and stuff. And it also got me to figure out, research and see what's going on within the industry and actually connect with more people. And on that level, it's great. But I always tell people to be really conscious of it. Like, I never tell people they should aspire to going viral necessarily. I think it's better to get consistent high views. And absolutely, if you can maintain that within the people you're trying to reach, you can make money off it. You can approach brands and say, well, look, not only am I able to access these people, I never really go under like the influencer umbrella. Brands will always say, influencer, and I kind of am like, oh, it's not really my job. I'm just a hairdresser who happens to have a following. But where in our industry, when you get a following, it really benefits you, is because we do have those credentials. You can go to brands and be like, yes, I can reach people, but people believe me more because of what I can offer, my experience, and ultimately, yeah, just actually expand that network a bit more.
Do you feel a pressure of having to be at the forefront of being a content creator, certainly within our industry?
Absolutely, yeah. I actually I took my foot off the gas kind of coming up to Christmas, and I'm only starting to go back into it now because pressure was really insane. And it's a funny one. It's, I empathize a lot with content creators, especially people that, fall specifically under influencer, because it is a sort of directionless job. I mean, I think us as self-employed people can kind of relate anyway. There's no sort of natural progression. There's no next step. There's no, well, this is what I should be doing, or this is what I'm aiming for. And it can get a little bit, you can very quickly start to like kind of associate your worth with views and likes and follows and exposure, because that's essentially what you're kind of considering success. And that's again why I tell people to be very wary about being viral. It's like a drug, right? It's like, they see those ads in the US and it's like, not even once, because if you hit a video with like 1.5 million views, nothing really is going to make you feel that level of elevation afterwards. And even your stuff after that could still be better than what it was doing before, but it doesn't necessarily add up. So I do feel the pressure, and I know most people feel the pressure, and a lot of people don't talk about it. And especially if you start to see new stuff popping up, new artists, it's such a saturated market that it can get lost a bit for sure.